welcome back to the Bliss Bean. If you haven't watched my first video on how I study Korean, you can watch that here, or don't, I don't really care. But the reason I'm making this one is because I was not expecting people to be so interested in how I study Korean, but there are a ton of follow-up questions and I feel like I've just been typing out the same responses over and over on YouTube, on Instagram, etc. So in this video, I'm going to be answering all of those questions in one place so it's nice and organized, and I'm also going to be doing some updates because it's been a year now, and so I want to update you on the new tools and techniques that I've been able to find since then. So a year ago when I did that video, I was studying every single day for about 25 minutes per day, and this worked for me because I had a pretty open school schedule, and so I would usually find time during one of my study halls to fit in some practice, and I had those study halls every day, so a daily schedule worked really well for me. But now, since I don't go to school anymore, my days aren't as structured and uniform, so it just doesn't really make sense for me to study in short bursts anymore. So once summer started, since I was basically at home all day, I decided it was more productive for me to sit down and really focus, maybe fewer times per week, but for longer chunks of time. So instead of practicing 25 minutes 6 days a week, I did 1 hour 3 times a week. Yes. I also applied the same reasoning to other things I used to do daily, like studying Spanish or reading, so if you're interested in how I put together like a weekly study schedule, I talked about it in a recent edition of my newsletter, and you can find the link to that in my description. You should also subscribe to my newsletter for weekly inspiration and tips I don't share anywhere else. Anyways, very recently though, I've actually had more time on my hands, and because I have this problem where I can't not fill my entire day with doing things, I decided that I would try studying every single day for an hour. I only started that a couple of days ago, but so far it's been pretty enjoyable because honestly, I really enjoy studying Korean, so it's just a matter of finding time for it. It's not something that I have to force myself to do. But whatever schedule you create for yourself, I think the most important thing is consistency. So if you say you're gonna study every day, study every day. And if you say you're gonna study Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, study Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. Alright, so that's how my schedule has changed. In terms of new tools that I've introduced, one thing that I discovered recently that I love is called Anki. Anki is a free software you can download to create flashcards. It's like Quizlet, but much more powerful than Quizlet. A little harder to use and learn than Quizlet, but in the long run, definitely a lot more helpful than Quizlet. So the way that I used to learn vocab was I would make these tiny little flashcards, and on one side it'd be English and on the other side it'd be Korean. Very classic, very old school. But the problem was that I was still relying on English words, so I wasn't just thinking in Korean, I was first thinking in English and then translating to Korean, which is not the ultimate goal of language learning. This method also didn't reinforce my pronunciation, so like I knew how to pronounce all of the words because basically in Korean, words are pronounced the way they're written. English could take a few hints from that, but I really like hearing a native Korean person saying it over and over so that I can learn exactly how I need to say it. 만나다. So Anki fixes all of these problems. The way I set up my flashcards is on the front I have an image, not an English word, but an image that represents the word. Obviously some words are just too abstract to be represented by images, but I still try to get creative. I really want to avoid putting the English word. So for example, today I was making a flashcard for the word 되다, which means to become, and so instead of a picture, what I wrote down was, when I grow up, I want to blank an astronaut. And that just gets me thinking of like the idea of becoming something. So yeah, the front of the flashcard has the image or some sort of hint, and then the part of speech that it is, and then the backside contains an audio file as well as the Korean word. So with Anki, you don't have to like come up with your own study plan. It just automatically organizes study sessions for you. It'll give you the words that it thinks you need to review during that study session. So the way I have my flashcard set up is I'll see the image and the part of speech, and when I click to flip it, it plays the audio file automatically, and then I can give feedback on how easy it was for me to recall that word so that Anki knows how soon it needs to quiz me on that word again. 원하다. So I've been loving it. I've been in the process of inputting all of the vocab that I have in this little notebook into Anki, and I have gotten very quick at this. My method is I will snap Anki to the right side of my screen and then both Chrome and Finder to the left side. And if you're wondering how I can like snap them to the side of my screen instead of manually adjusting them, there's like a little app that you can download for Mac, maybe for Windows, I don't know. It's called Magnet. So yeah, I have those side by side on my screen. I type the Korean word using a Korean keyboard, copy that into Anki, then into Google Images to find a suitable picture, drag the picture in, open up my audio files that I purchased and downloaded from howtostudykorean.com, drop in the audio file, and then repeat and repeat and repeat. Whew. Another thing that I've started doing recently is finding webtoons that are in Korean, so I don't even bother to figure out what they're about. I literally just click on them, and if they're all in Korean and there's not too much text, I just go ahead and start trying to read it. So this is a very, very slow process because I don't know much Korean, but I go through sentence by sentence. I'll write the sentence in my notebook, try to translate as much as I can based on the knowledge I already have, and then whatever words or like conjugations or grammatical concepts I don't quite understand, I'll look those up and write what I learned about them in my notebook. And then finally, when I have like a final translation, I'll also write that down. I really like this because even though it's super, super difficult, at least for now, for me, it's a really nice opportunity to like finally apply what you've been learning to something that isn't even intended for Korean learners. Like, it's just a Korean webtoon, but to be able to finally start understanding it a little bit is very exciting. Then real quick, some other helpful websites that I found. Learnwitholiver.com I really like for translating individual words, and then if I'm translating full sentences, then Naver Papago is very helpful. Google Translate sucks. Whatever language you're trying to translate, it sucks. And then when I need to type in Korean, I use brana.com/Korean. I don't know how to pronounce any of these except Learn with Oliver. And now, onto some commonly asked questions. A lot of people ask me, where is your notebook from? And unfortunately, I got that notebook at a summer camp, so I have no idea. Also, unfortunately, I left that notebook in a hotel on a school trip, so that sucked. I got this new one from Walmart, and the brand is Exceed. So when I did my last video, if you recall, I would put all of my vocab at the back of the notebooks, and then all of the grammar at the front. It was like divided into 3 sections, which was honestly just a pain. So since I had a chance to restart, even though it really sucked to have to rewrite all my notes, it was nice because I had the opportunity to now split into a grammar notebook and a vocab notebook. And I also am a little bit more organized this time around, so I have a table of contents on the first page and then page numbers on all of the pages. So yeah, the opportunity to get more organized was the silver lining in that sucky situation. My bra is falling off my shoulders. Okay, anyways, a lot of people also ask, how do you memorize vocab? And honestly, when I first started studying, I sucked at memorizing vocab because there was just no method to the madness. But I was taking AP Psychology, and so I tried to kind of apply some of the things that I learned about memory in that class. So instead of just reading the English word and the Korean word and hoping that they will somehow make a connection in my brain, I actually started putting in the effort to come up with some sort of connection for every single word that I was learning. As an example, the word for movie is 영화. So the first part, young, sounds like young in English, and then hwa is the root of the word Tuesday. So all days of the week in Korean end in yoil, and Tuesday is hwayoil. So hwa basically represents Tuesday. So my brain remembered this movie theater where students got a reduced rate on Tuesday evenings. So the connection that I made was that young people on Tuesdays can see movies for a cheaper price. 영화. So just whatever pops into my head while I'm studying is what I go with. Some tricks work better than others, but really just making that like little connection in your brain makes all the difference. Another question was, how can you find study buddies? I don't personally have study buddies. I do know some Korean people whom I've asked questions of when I'm confused and like can't find an explanation online, and I think all of them I met because they watched my first Korean video or just found my blog in some other way, but I don't have like any conversation partners. So if that's what you're looking for, there are different apps out there. Like one that I've tried is called Hello Talk. I personally did not have a very good experience with it. Maybe it's just my style of learning, but you just basically send text and audio messages back and forth, and you like help others by correcting their language that they're learning, and then they help you in return. But I didn't really like that the conversations were really fragmented. Like, you log in and you send a message back, but then they're not gonna send you a message until they log into the app. So it's just, it doesn't really feel like a nice flowing conversation. It's just kind of little snippets, and so I didn't get enough value out of that to continue using it. Otherwise, for finding conversation partners, you might look in places like Facebook groups that are all about studying that particular language, or honestly, comment sections of YouTube videos like this. If you're finding that you're having trouble finding someone that's like compatible with you, but like if you guys are at different levels of language learning and it's hard for you to communicate because of that, or if you just don't click, like there's nothing for you to talk about, or they're bad at responding, or you're bad at responding, you might want to think about investing like in an actual language tutor. The only place I know of for that is italki. That's another website. I'm gonna link to all of these in the description. Somewhere I read that the rates go from like $10 to $30 an hour, so they basically just are language tutors that will help you practice conversation and correct you. And it's nice because there's no expectation from you. Like, you are not expected to teach them anything, and they're actually like trained in tutoring other people in that language. So you might find that the money is worth that investment for you. Someone else asked, is everything that you take notes on from howtostudykorean.com? Mostly it is. Occasionally I will have some other questions that I go to outside sources for, which is always a good thing because it's great to read different explanations of the same subject to make sure that you're really understanding it. And so when I go to a place besides howtostudykorean.com, I'll just make a new page in my notebook for those notes so that I can keep them separate. So recently I had some questions on 2 ways to say now, the difference between 이제 and 지금, as well as the various ways that Korean has to say the words young and old. And then the last common question was, do I use romanizations? And no, I do not. Romanizations are so hard to work with because, first of all, there's different ways to romanize. Second of all, it's really hard to get the pronunciation down if you're relying on romanizations. What other complaints do I have? I think it makes it harder to identify the grammar concepts that are within the words in the sentences. The only thing I use romanizations for is when I'm trying to learn fan chants. But when I'm actually studying Korean, then never. I don't mess with romanizations. So yeah, that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching this. Let me know if you watched the first video because I think it'd be super cool to see who stuck around for all this time. But also let me know if you're new, because then welcome. If you have any other questions, feel free to comment them. I pretty much respond to 100% of comments that are genuine and kind. So you'll probably get a response from me in under a week. Make sure to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next week. Bye!